Okay, I'll start over. My name is Julie Arnold. I run a vegetable CSA. It's a 50-member CSA. It's about an acre and a half of cultivated vegetables in Lindstrom, Minnesota, which is in the St. Croix River Valley. It's on my parents' land, the land I grew up on. And I work with my brother, and he's one day a week, and I also have my partner works in the summertime, and I also hire one person to work part-time. So all the 50 members are required when you sign up at the beginning of the year to work 4 hours on the farm sometime throughout the year. And so I originally did that. I set it up that way so that people would build relationship with me and the land that the food was grown on, to like build connection with the land, and also have a space for community building. So I mean, the CSA model is a cool model, and I also like want to use it as a community building tool. And so it has largely worked that way pretty well. So it's been 6 years that I have been farming on this land, and my mom farmed before me, and we switched to this model when I started. And so we offer on Thursdays as the harvest day for CSA, and that's mainly the day that people can come out and help. And I mean, I guess we can get to that, but it works pretty well. I mean, if you're actually just looking at like, if it's beneficial for me to have people come based on the work that they do, I would say that that would be a net zero because of the amount of work that I put in to sort of set it up. But I'm not farming for like, I farm for a living, but it's not because I want to extract from the land or to make lots of money. It is actually to like create a different system, a different model that puts people in the land in the center. And so in that way, like it really works. People come and they feel like they're invested in the farm and in this community, and they build relationship with the land. So in that way, it's definitely beneficial and is doing its job, I guess. So, I mean, some structures that like I don't know that it was necessarily intentional, but just sort of happened, is that like I have some like I grew up in Lindstrom, and so there are some older women who grew up on farms who come weekly to harvest. So like they are in charge of washing, and I like get to just rely on them to do that. And so they are able to like run that and bring other people, other volunteers in. So it is very much like the space feels volunteer focused, I guess, on those harvest days especially. And then I am able to rely on the people that work with me too, to run different stations, I guess. But the other thing is that I think that it really helps to have people on harvest day, because then they're not just coming to weed. That is the most fun job on the farm. You really get the benefit of, yeah, I mean, it's the most fun. So people really feel like they're contributing, and yeah, I think that helps a lot. And then I usually have a weekend, like several weekend days that are opportunities for like larger member work days. So we just had like a fall potluck and member work day where there were 40 people that came. And I mean, in that case, we actually we got a lot of hoops built for the hoop house, and we pulled out the tomatoes and like actually got a lot of work done that would have taken me weeks and weeks. So that was super useful, I think, to have like a day where people could feel like they were contributing, and it was really helpful work-wise for me. I think maybe 4 or 5 years we've done it this model. So it's been a little while. And I'm thinking that in the future, I would like love to continue to imagine what it looks like to build more community. I just talked to a board member of the CSA, and he was saying that it might be cool to have like uh, a buddy program with the CSA, so like a returning member paired up with a non-returning member. It's that doesn't really have to do with the work share part, but it does have to do with the community building. So they could come out together, they can share recipes. So I'm thinking about that might be really cool because retention. I mean, the returning members, that's an easy one, but the first year members, it's hard to retain people because it's such a different way of cooking. And I also just like I want to keep imagining and thinking about what it looks like to give people access to this private land. I am aware that like I have incredible privilege to have access to that. This was my family land and I have access to this, and I don't like I think in the future we shouldn't have private land ownership. I don't think it makes sense. So what does it look like to have more people on this land and create space for that? I don't have specific ideas except I'm like going in a direction that I, think makes sense, and I'll keep sort of trying to figure out ways to have more people feel comfortable on the land, and contributing to growing their food. Yeah. I think there are definitely work days where it feels like it's less than net zero, I guess. Like that still happens, and I am careful about what projects I have people work on, and to both like make people feel like they are meaningfully contributing and also not doing something super complicated that needs a lot of oversight.
So what are some of those projects?
I mean, like building the hoops was great. Pulling out the tomatoes was great. Like pulling out plants. So a lot of the fall stuff seems really great. The earlier spring planting and weeding can be hard because it's hard for people to. Well, both planting requires some technique, and also weeding. You might pull up plants in the early spring. So it seems like once things are established, it's a little bit easier to have people around. And then as far as harvesting goes, I feel like most harvesting is pretty easy to skill people up to be able to harvest things. I don't feel like there's a I mean, if things are more challenging, I end up doing them anyway. So, and that's not a huge deal. There's plenty of things that are easy enough to do harvest wise. And I will say also that it's definitely how do I say this? Like there's a trade-off. I want to build community and have, like, for instance, children have access to this space, and so I like for the work share trade for families, I usually have some leniency. I mean, like I want kids to be able to experience this, so I know that is not gonna, like, the parents of that family are not gonna meaningfully contribute, and that is okay. Because I would rather have the community building, I guess. Um, I have planned many summer work days when it's like 100 degrees. I mean, like, I don't intentionally plan them on the 100-degree days, but any work day in July is a no-go. I mean, people already, I don't feel like have much stamina for hard physical labor, but especially when it's really hot. So the fall work days are gold. That seems to be. I mean, like, I've canceled many work days because of heat. And I've also gone through with them, and it's been hard. It's been hard for people. People have not a super positive experience because it's really challenging physically.
Do you think you'll shift in the future to like?
Oh, I guess this isn't a tool, just noticing that I remind people of their required work hours, but I don't dog people about their work hours because ultimately it's for connecting with the farm, and I don't. So people sometimes feel stressed about, like, I want to be a part of your CSA, but I don't think I can do this, and like that is okay. It's ultimately just to build relationships. So, yeah. I have a board because it's just a member board, and the board is to um, help guide decisions that I make on the farm. So it's a mix of people from Minneapolis, from the cities, and from Lindstrom, and yeah, just sort of like a cross section of members. People who are new and older, and they serve like 3 years usually on the board. And then we meet a couple times a year and we talk about like what went well, what could we share ideas about what could be better. And it's like really helpful for me to, as like a person who, I mean, I'm the sole person who runs the farm, so I bounce ideas off of my family, but I don't have, it's really helpful to have members who are invested and who want to see to it that things go well for them too. Um, so, yeah. Yeah.
What sorts of decisions do they help you make? Is it things like, do we want more broccoli next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is it? What are some things the board can weigh?
Yeah, I mean, that is something. I mean, when I switched to having a model that was, you know, half shares every week instead of half shares every other week, the board helped me decide that. It seemed like that's what people wanted was more frequent vegetables. Yeah, and what is grown, what's shared in the newsletter. Um, how they help me with marketing, thinking about how we get the word out. They usually like recruit a lot of members. The board does. They're like speaking of super volunteers, they are like some super volunteers, really invested and really care about the farm doing well.
So that's totally a volunteer.
Yeah, it is. Uh-huh. Yeah.
How did you find those people? Were they just some of your initial members that seemed really invested?
Yeah, they were interested members, and then I have, some of them are like, have been friends of mine, and some people I sort of ask out of the blue because I want some new members who, this may be, I mean, like, because some people on the board, CSA is totally a new thing for them. They were not, I mean, they're like converts or something, so it's really helpful to have their perspective because I feel like I'm in this other, like, I could use any vegetable all the time. It's useful to have that perspective. So, yeah, it's cool. I mean, CSA is a resilient model. I think like the one of the things I love about it is that like during the pandemic we weren't I mean CSAs weren't like, I don't know, tilling in all their peppers or killing all their hogs or whatever. Like I heard many stories of farmers doing that, and we have direct relationship with our customers, so we're able to move produce in a way that there's not a middle person. So it's a more resilient model. And as capitalism is collapsing, and like I mean that is what's happening. It makes sense that we would have models that are more resilient and based on community and care for each other. So I think that there's a real future for CSA. I also think that like right now there's a huge challenge that like the onus of buying good food is on the customers or the farmers like taking a hit and charging less for it. So I would love for more support from the federal government and from the state to like actually make this an affordable model and for access for more people, because that's really like that's huge what's in the way for this to be a model sort of broadly. um I mean this is just like another piece of having my parents live on the land, is that like I don't actually live here full time. I leave physically, I leave the farm on the weekends, and that is enormous for like I know that I would work all weekend. I mean, at least part of the weekend if I was here. So um, that's huge to have separation, but that's like a real privilege. So I would say some other things are that what are some other things? I don't know, man. I really try to not make this I mean, it's like such a big part of my life, but I try to have other things going on in my life. Um, yeah, it's about how much land do I have to grow on to like make a baseline living. I'm not, and it's interesting because like I feel like I get a lot of questions from people about there's an assumption because of capitalism about like just grow, like of course you're going to grow if you're doing well, you're going to grow, and that just like maybe doesn't make sense. My brother is thinking about coming into the business, and so we are talking about like what does it actually mean um, to like be able to live off the farm for both of us. And if there was another person that came in, that would be the same sort of question. So um, I also like yeah. So the future for that looks like I would love to provide, like I would love to have winter storage, and we'll be growing more apples and doing winter CSA. I feel like that's like I'm excited about having food in the winter, I guess, for people. Um, yeah, but the scale I do, the other reason I like this scale is because it requires limit. I'm trying to do no or limited tilling, and it requires little mechanization. And it's like just at the, you know, it's an acre and a half to 2 acres. It's like just at the cutoff really that we can do everything. It's like a human powered thing. So yeah.